There's breaking news from Washington tonight. An official confirms U.S. Vice President Mike Pence is going to distance himself from others after his press secretary tested positive for COVID-19. But Pence is not self-isolating or under quarantine. He is following the advice of the White House medical team. He has repeatedly tested negative for the virus. But Dr. Anthony Fauci and two other members of the U.S. task force handling the pandemic are in quarantine now. As Jennifer Johnson reports, it shows how little control there is over the virus in that part of the world.
COVID-19 has reached the inner circle of the White House. Centers for Disease Control Director Dr. Robert Redfield, Food and Drug Administration Head Dr. Stephen Hahn, and the country's lead infectious disease doctor Anthony Fauci are all self-isolating. Further proof of how difficult this virus is to control.
We have to understand that we're riding this tiger, we're not directing it. This virus is going to do what it's going to do. What we can do is only nibble at the edges.
Fauci and the others will now have to testify before a Senate Health Committee this week via video teleconference.
When people do get exposed to the virus, if they know it, they should self-quarantine to protect others from getting it, and that's the process we've been doing from day one.
Last week, two people with daily access to the West Wing, Katie Miller, Vice President Mike Pence press secretary, and one of President Trump's valets, who served some of his meals, tested positive for COVID-19. That forced major changes.
The president and I not only will be tested every day, but I think everyone that comes into contact with the president will be tested every day.
White House staff are now reportedly wearing masks, but no one at a joint chiefs of staff meeting Saturday with the president had one on. Meanwhile, as Americans grow restless and more stay-at-home orders are relaxed, new outbreaks are emerging, including one in Pasadena, California, stemming from a large birthday party. Large gatherings are still not allowed under that state's rules.
I extend caution to other families that think, well, we got this, this is behind us. It's sadly and tragically not.
Other governors who have reopened their states are being forced to take drastic actions. All city beaches in Naples, Florida have been ordered to shut down again after people refuse to socially distance themselves. Lawmakers still fearing this virus, even as some Americans do not. Jennifer Johnson, Global News, Washington.
The clubs are closed, but the beat goes on for partygoers at this drive-in rave in Germany. DJs pumped out the music to the car-bound crowd. Socially distant dancing was allowed, with no more than 2 people per vehicle. Last month, Germany began gradually easing lockdown restrictions, but infections are now rising. Spain is guardedly optimistic about the latest death toll. In the past 24 hours, 143 people have died, but the daily death toll hasn't been that low since March 18th. The daily caseload is trending upwards, though. More than 800 people tested positive Saturday, up from 721 on Friday. Tomorrow, more than half of Spain will move into the first phase of lifting some lockdown measures. Gatherings of up to 10 people will be permitted, and people will be able to travel within their own province. Bars, restaurants, and stores can open, but fewer customers will be allowed in. Museums, gyms, and hotels will also reopen. 2 of Spain's biggest cities, Madrid and Barcelona, remain in lockdown. France is preparing to relax its lockdown tomorrow. After 55 days, shops and schools and libraries will reopen, but restrictions remain in most of the country's east, including Paris, due to a higher risk of infection. There are more than 136,000 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in France, which has suffered one of the worst death rates in Europe. Britain has a new COVID-19 alert system to chart Britain's progress during this pandemic. Today, Prime Minister Boris Johnson detailed the 5 phases. Level 1 indicates COVID-19 is no longer present, while Level 5 is the most critical. Johnson says the UK is currently at Level 4, so there is still a way to go, but by following those guidelines, the government will be able to gauge if more severe or relaxed measures are required.
That COVID alert level will be determined primarily by R and the number of coronavirus cases, and in turn, that COVID alert level will tell us how tough we have to be in our social distancing measures.
And Johnson says if all goes well, shops and some schools could reopen in June.
the new series that goes inside the COVID-19 pandemic, from the front lines to the everyday heroes helping us cope with the unprecedented change. Coronavirus, the New Reality. A Global News special, Sundays at 7 on Global.